This video is about, she arrived at the airport lounge, and a millionaire sat beside her. If this story touches your heart, please mention where you are watching from in the comments. Please like the video and share your thoughts in comments. The air was thick with the scent of fresh coffee and the murmurs of travelers when Ilara stepped into the airport lounge. Her heart raced, not out of excitement, but from the lingering anxiety of leaving home. Her fingers brushed against the worn leather strap of her handbag, a habit she developed over years of travel. Each trip felt like a farewell, a reminder of the life she was temporarily leaving behind. She found solace in the lounge's muted ambience, the soft hum of conversations wrapping around her like a warm blanket. Ilara chose a plush armchair by the window, the low sunlight casting a golden glow over the pane. She pulled out her laptop, intending to distract herself with work, but her thoughts drifted back to the conversation she had with her mother that morning. "Are you sure about this job, Ilara?" her mother had asked, worry etched in her voice. "It's in a different country, and you know how you get." "I'll be fine, Mom. It's just a year," she had replied, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "I need this. I need to grow." Yet deep down, she wondered if she was running away from something more than just her routine. The thought nagged at her as she watched the planes take off and land, each one carrying someone's dreams, their stories. As she settled into her work, the lounge door swung open, and a rush of cool air swept in, accompanied by the faint sound of laughter. Ilara glanced up, momentarily distracted from her screen. A tall man strode in, exuding an effortless confidence that turned heads. His tailored suit hugged his frame perfectly, and he carried an air of casual authority, as if the lounge were an extension of his own living room. He scanned the room, his gaze landing on the empty seat beside her. Ilara quickly looked down, her cheeks warming slightly, unsure why a mere glance made her pulse quicken. She was lost in her own thoughts when he approached. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, his voice smooth as silk, yet laced with a hint of mischief. Ilara glanced up, meeting his striking blue eyes, which glimmered with a charisma that felt almost magnetic. No, not at all," she replied, mentally kicking herself for her lack of poise. He settled into the chair beside her, an easy smile playing on his lips. "I'm Theo, by the way," he introduced himself, extending a hand. "And you are?" "Ilara," she said, shaking his hand briefly, her skin tingling at the contact. "Nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you too, Ilara." His gaze lingered on her a moment longer than necessary, and she felt her heart flutter, not entirely sure if it was intrigue or something more. "What brings you here?" he asked, leaning back in his chair, his demeanor relaxed yet intent. "Just starting a new job abroad. A bit of a leap, I guess." She couldn't believe she was sharing this with a stranger, but something in his expression made her feel safe. "What about you?" "Business. The usual," he replied with a shrug, though there was a flicker of something deeper in his eyes. A hint of weariness, perhaps? "I could say I'm here to save the world, but honestly, it's just another meeting." Ilara chuckled, the tension easing slightly. "Well, even superheroes need to take a break." "True enough," he replied, his smile widening. "What's your field?" "I'm a marketing consultant," she said, her confidence building. "I help companies refine their brand image and connect with their audience." "Sounds intriguing. I've always admired people who can make an idea resonate." He leaned in slightly, his curiosity evident. "What's your philosophy on branding?" She was taken aback by his interest, her mind racing with thoughts. "It's about authenticity, really. People want to feel connected, to see the real story behind a product." "I can see that," he replied, his sincerity catching her off guard. "It's the stories that linger with people." They fell into an easy rhythm, the conversation flowing naturally. Ilara found herself sharing pieces of her life, her love for painting, the thrill of travel, her complicated relationship with her father. Theo listened intently, his expressions shifting in sync with her words, as if he could feel her emotions. "Sounds like you're quite adventurous," he said, leaning back, admiration clear in his voice. I envy that. Adventurous or reckless? She teased lightly, raising an eyebrow. There's a fine line, you know. He chuckled, the sound rich and warm. Well, I'd say it's all about perspective. Maybe you're just brave enough to take that leap. The moment hung between them, thick with unspoken tension. Elara felt a flutter of excitement mixed with apprehension. She had sworn off entanglements, choosing instead to focus on her work and personal growth. But there was something about Theo that intrigued her, something dangerously alluring. As they talked, he revealed snippets of his life, the high-stakes world of business deals, his struggles with the expectations that came with his wealth, and a sense of loneliness that lingered in the corners of his success. She listened, captivated by the vulnerability he allowed to surface, wondering how someone so charismatic could feel so adrift. "Do you ever feel like you're just playing a part?" he asked suddenly, his expression turning serious. "Like you're expected to be this version of yourself that doesn't quite fit?" Elara's heart twisted at the raw honesty in his question. "All the time," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Sometimes it feels like I'm just going through the motions, you know?" He considered her for a moment, his eyes searching hers as if trying to decipher a hidden truth. "What do you really want, Elara?" The weight of his question settled heavily between them. She hesitated, thoughts swirling in her mind. "I want to feel fulfilled, to create something that matters," she confessed, surprised by her own vulnerability. "Creating something that matters. That's a beautiful ambition." His gaze softened, and for a fleeting moment, Elara felt a connection that transcended the superficiality of their surroundings. Just then, a group of well-dressed businessmen entered the lounge, their loud banter cutting through their intimate exchange. Theo's demeanor shifted slightly. He straightened in his chair, his casual air replaced with a more guarded stance. "Duty calls, I guess," he said with a hint of reluctance. "But I really enjoyed this conversation." "Me too," Elara said, her heart sinking. "It's refreshing to talk openly." He stood, adjusting his cufflinks, a hint of regret flickering in his eyes. "Can I have your number? I'd love to continue this conversation sometime." Her heart raced. The mix of excitement and trepidation was intoxicating. "Sure. That'd be nice," she said, handing him her phone, and their fingers grazed, sending an unexpected spark through her. Before she could second-guess herself, he punched in his information. "I'll text you," he promised, his smile returning, though there was a trace of hesitation in his eyes. "Safe travels, Elara." As he walked away, she felt a strange mixture of hope and uncertainty. The connection had been real, yet she was acutely aware of her own reservations. She shook her head, trying to dispel the thoughts swirling in her mind. She had a new job waiting for her, a fresh start, and yet here she was, caught in a moment that could lead to complications. Elara made a mental note to focus on her career, to guard her heart. But as she watched Theo disappear into the crowd, she couldn't shake the feeling that her decision to open up might have just changed everything. Elara took a deep breath, letting the aromas of coffee and pastries mingle with the flutter of nervous energy that had settled in her stomach. With Theo's departure, the lounge felt quieter, as if the laughter and chatter had dimmed to a mere echo of what had just unfolded. She glanced at her laptop, the blinking cursor on the blank document serving as a reminder of the work waiting for her. But her thoughts were tangled, the conversation they shared replaying like a cherished song stuck on repeat. "Did I just flirt with a millionaire?" she muttered to herself, a mix of disbelief and excitement rushing through her. It was a feeling she hadn't entertained in a long time, but as she fiddled with the edge of her laptop, the reality of her new job crept back into focus. This was supposed to be her year of self-discovery, free from distractions. But was Theo a distraction, or could he be something more? As if summoned by her thoughts, her phone buzzed on the table. Heart racing, she snatched it up, her pulse quickening at the sight of a message flashing across the screen. "Keo, great meeting you, Elara. Let's grab that coffee when you land. Safe travels." And done. A giddy smile broke across her face. She hesitated for a moment, letting the warmth of his words wash over her. She quickly typed a response, her fingers dancing over the screen. "Well, Lara, sounds good. Looking forward to it. Nash." Setting her phone down, she tried to refocus on work, but her thoughts were swirling. Thoughts of their connection, their laughter, and the way they had shared pieces of themselves without fear. It was a stark contrast to the more guarded relationships she had experienced. Elara dismissed the notion that she was reading too much into it, but the feeling lingered, settling deep in her chest. The hours passed in a blur of screens and coffee refills, but her concentration was slipping. Every now and then she would catch herself glancing at her phone, half hoping for a second message that would never come. The anticipation was both thrilling and frustrating. She was flying into uncharted territory, and part of her was scared to let herself get lost. When her flight was finally announced, Elara gathered her belongings, her heart still racing as she walked toward the terminal gate. She boarded the plane, settling into her seat and staring out the window as the ground receded. The landscape blurred into a patchwork of greens and browns, and she felt a pang of loss, not necessarily for home, but for the possibility that might have just slipped through her fingers. The flight was long, and as the plane soared into the clouds, she pulled her laptop back out, determined to work despite her racing mind. Yet, focus was elusive. Images of Theo kept intruding. His laugh, the way his eyes sparkled when he spoke about his work, and the vulnerability he had revealed. The memory of their conversation felt like a tether to something she hadn't realized she was missing. When the plane finally touched down, Elara felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. She collected her luggage and made her way through the airport's busy halls, her mind still swirling with thoughts of the man she had met. Would he really text her again? Would this be a fleeting moment in her life or a chapter that she would come back to? As she made her way outside, the warm air enveloped her, a stark contrast to the brisk atmosphere of the lounge. Elara took a deep breath, shaking off the lingering thoughts of Theo. She reminded herself of the path ahead, the new job, the fresh start. She was determined to embrace her independence, to grow in ways she hadn't allowed herself before. The next few days flew by in a whirlwind of meetings, paperwork, and introductions. Elara poured herself into her work, immersing herself in the vibrant new city. Yet every time her phone buzzed, her heart would leap, only to deflate when it wasn't Theo's name that appeared. Just as she began to settle into her role, a message finally arrived. "Keo, how's the new adventure treating you? Coffee soon?" "Oui." Her heart raced at the sight of his name. She responded quickly, her enthusiasm bubbling over. "Well, Lara, it's going well. Would love to grab that coffee. When are you free?" "When well." They set a time for the weekend, and Elara found herself counting down the days. She had spent her evenings preparing, choosing an outfit that felt confident yet approachable, as she imagined the conversation flowing easily, just like it had in the lounge. The day finally arrived, and as Elara walked into the cafe they had agreed on, she felt a flutter of nerves. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, mingling with the sound of soft chatter. Her eyes scanned the room, and there he was, Theo, seated at a corner table, an easy smile on his face as he caught her gaze. "Hey, you made it," he said, standing to greet her, his presence filling the space with an undeniable warmth. Elara felt her butterflies turn into a flurry as she took in his casual outfit, a stark contrast to the polished suit he had worn at the airport. "Missed this," she replied, feeling the flush of a smile spread across her face. "How have you been?" "Busy as usual," he said, motioning for her to take a seat. "But I've been looking forward to this." The conversation flowed effortlessly, punctuated by laughter and shared stories of their lives. Elara felt herself relax, the tension from earlier melting away. They joked about their respective workplaces, finding common ground in the chaos of deadlines and expectations. "Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever escape this treadmill," Theo said, his smile faltering for a moment. "But then I meet someone like you, and it makes me rethink everything." Elara felt her heart skip a beat. "What do you mean?" she asked, intrigued by the shift in his tone. I mean, it's easy to get lost in the grind, he explained, looking into her eyes with a seriousness that made her pulse quicken. But you have this light about you. It's refreshing. She swallowed hard, feeling a warmth spread through her. I'm just trying to find my way like everyone else, she said, her voice softening. What about you? Do you ever feel like you're stuck? His gaze turned contemplative. All the time. The expectations are suffocating. Sometimes I feel like I'm just performing. The vulnerability in his words struck her. But you're not just a performer, she replied, her heart racing. You have a choice, Theo. You get to decide who you want to be. He studied her for a moment, his blue eyes searching hers as if he were trying to read her every thought. You make it sound so simple, he said, a hint of admiration in his voice. I think I've been waiting for someone to say that. A charged silence hung between them. Elara felt the air thicken, the chemistry palpable as they exchanged glances. It was as if the world around them faded, leaving just the two of them suspended in a moment of raw connection. Can I be honest? She said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't expect to feel this way about someone I just met. Theo leaned in closer, his expression earnest. Neither did I, he admitted, his breath warm against her skin. But something about you. It pulls me in. Her heart raced, a mixture of thrill and caution swirling within her. This was the kind of connection she had yearned for, yet the fear of entanglement loomed over her like a dark cloud. Could she allow herself to open up again? To take the risk? Before she could respond, a server approached their table, interrupting the moment with a cheerful smile. Can I get you anything else? They both broke the tension with laughter, but the weight of their earlier conversation lingered. Elara felt a small pang of disappointment as the moment slipped away, but she also felt a renewed sense of determination to explore this connection, no matter how uncertain. As they wrapped up their coffees, Theo's gaze met hers with a knowing intensity. I'm glad we met, Elara. It feels like something significant, doesn't it? She nodded, her chest tightening at the thought. Yeah, I feel it too. But it's complicated, isn't it? He sighed, running a hand through his hair, a gesture that made her heart flutter. It is, but sometimes the most complex things are worth pursuing. As they exchanged numbers again, Elara felt the weight of their connection settle more firmly between them. This was just the beginning, and she could sense that they were teetering on the edge of something thrilling and dangerous. As they parted ways, Elara felt a mixture of hope and apprehension. She was stepping into a new chapter of her life, one filled with promise and uncertainty. And as she walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter with Theo would be a turning point, a fork in the road that could lead her to discover not just who she wanted to be, but who she could become with someone beside her. Elara stepped into the bustling cafe, a nervous flutter dancing in her stomach as she scanned the room. The clinking of cups and the hum of conversation created a comforting backdrop, but all her attention was focused on finding Theo. She spotted him seated at a corner table, a casual outfit replacing the sharp suit from their first meeting. His hair had a slight tousle to it, giving him an air of relaxed confidence that made her heart race. As he looked up and met her gaze, his smile lit up the room, and her breath caught in her throat. "Hey, you made it!" he exclaimed, standing up and pulling out her chair with a charm that made her blush. "How have you been?" "Busy, but good. Just getting used to my new routine," she replied, settling into the chair. As she glanced around, a sense of familiarity washed over her, mixed with a thrill at being here with him. New job, new city. It must be a lot. Theo leaned in, his eyes sparkling with interest. "How's the adjustment going?" "It's been a whirlwind," she admitted, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her coffee cup. "But it's exciting to be somewhere new. I feel like I'm finally stepping out of my comfort zone." "You've always seemed adventurous," he mused, leaning back in his chair. "I admire that about you." Elara felt a warmth spread through her cheeks at his compliment. "Thanks. It's not always easy, though. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just running away from something. He studied her expression, a flicker of understanding passing between them. What do you think you're running from? She hesitated, the weight of the question pressing down on her. I guess my past, my family expectations. There's always this pressure to follow a certain path. But I want to find my own way. Theo nodded, the sincerity in his gaze deepening the connection between them. That pressure can be suffocating, but I think it's brave to want to forge your own path. It takes courage to break away. Elara felt an unspoken bond forming, a shared understanding of the struggles that came with their respective lives. What about you? What do you feel like you're running towards? She asked, leaning forward, genuinely curious. His smile faltered slightly, a shadow crossing his face. I guess I'm not entirely sure. Business is what I know, but there's a part of me that craves something deeper. Something that feels more authentic. You should pursue that, she encouraged, suddenly aware of how close they were. The air felt charged, electric, and she could see the conflict in his eyes. Easier said than done, he replied, a hint of vulnerability creeping into his voice. Sometimes I feel like I'm stuck in a role that isn't really me. Elara's heart ached for him. You deserve to be happy, Theo. I think everyone does. He let out a soft laugh, but it didn't reach his eyes. You make it sound so simple. It is simple, but the execution is the hard part, she countered, a sense of determination flaring within her. I know we don't know each other well yet, but I believe we have the power to change our narratives. Theo's gaze intensified, and for a brief moment, the world around them faded, leaving just the two of them. You have a way of making me think, Elara. It's refreshing. Before she could respond, the server approached, breaking their moment. Can I get you anything else? She asked, a bright smile on her face. Just the check, please, Theo replied, glancing back at Elara. You think we can continue this conversation somewhere quieter? Sure, I'd like that, she said, her heart racing at the prospect of a more intimate setting. Once outside, they walked side by side down the bustling street. Elara took a moment to revel in the warmth of the sun on her skin, the echoes of laughter and chatter surrounding them. It felt vibrant, alive, and she couldn't help but feel that this day held promise. They found a small park nearby, its shade inviting them to settle onto a bench. As they sat, the tension from their earlier conversation lingered, creating a charged atmosphere. Elara's mind raced with questions. She wanted to know more about him, but there was an underlying fear of exposing too much too soon. Tell me more about your business, she ventured, trying to lighten the mood. What's the most exciting project you've worked on? Theo leaned back, his gaze drifting to the trees overhead. I've been part of a few startups. There's something exhilarating about watching an idea grow from nothing into something impactful. But the pressure can be so intense. You sound passionate, she observed, intrigued by the flicker of enthusiasm in his eyes. He turned to her, a smirk playing at the corners of his lips. I try to be, but sometimes I feel like I'm just in it for the thrill, not necessarily for the meaning. Elara frowned, sensing deeper layers beneath his words. Maybe the thrill is one of the meanings, she said gently. You're allowed to enjoy what you do. His laughter was rich and warm, easing the tension in her chest. You're good at this, making me rethink my entire life in the span of a conversation. Maybe that's my superpower, she teased, a sparkle igniting in her eyes as she mirrored his playful tone. But seriously, I think we all need someone to challenge us. Theo leaned closer, intrigue etched across his features. And who challenges you, Elara? She paused, reflecting on his question. Honestly, I think I've been on my own for so long that I've forgotten what it's like to have someone push me. I've focused on building my career and finding my footing. Maybe you should let someone in, he suggested, the earnestness of his voice sending a shiver down her spine. You deserve more than just independence. You deserve connection. Elara felt her breath hitch. There was a lingering moment where the air thickened again, the chemistry crackling like electricity. "What about you? Can you let people in?" Theo hesitated, vulnerability flashing in his eyes. "I'm working on it, but it's scary. I build walls to protect myself, and sometimes I don't know how to bring them down." His honesty stirred something deep within her. "Maybe we can work on it together," she said softly, reaching out to rest her hand on his. The simple touch sent a jolt of warmth between them, igniting a tension that felt both exciting and daunting. He looked at her hand, then back at her face. Uncertainty mingled with a spark of hope. "I'd like that, Elara." Just then, a couple walked by, their laughter ringing through the air, pulling Elara from the intimate moment. She withdrew her hand, suddenly aware of the implications of their connection. "But what if it complicates things?" she asked, her voice tinged with hesitation. Theo's expression shifted, a shadow darkening his gaze. "Complications are inevitable, especially when feelings are involved." She bit her lip, wrestling with the fear that crept in. "I am not looking for anything serious right now. I want to focus on myself." "I understand," he said, his voice steady. "But that doesn't mean we can't explore what's here. You've already made an impact on me, Elara." Her heart fluttered at his words, but she also felt a pang of apprehension. "I just don't want to lose myself in someone else's life." "But isn't that part of the journey?" he asked, his gaze piercing through her defenses. "To grow together without losing who we are individually." "Maybe," she said, considering the possibilities. "But it's a fine line." The silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken truths and latent feelings. Elara could feel the tension lingering, both thrilling and intimidating. She had fought hard to carve out her independence, and the thought of letting someone in was daunting. "Let's take it slow," Theo suggested, his voice softening. "We can keep discovering each other without rushing." "Yeah, I'd like that," she replied, her heart racing at the prospect of what that could mean. They both seemed to understand the importance of pacing, the need to build trust amidst the uncertainty. As they sat in the park, the day felt suspended in time. The warmth of the sun wrapping around them, the leaves rustling above, and the distant laughter of children playing all faded into the background. In that moment it was just Elara and Theo, two souls navigating a path filled with potential. "Let's make a pact," he proposed, a playful glint returning to his eyes. "No expectations, just coffee, conversation, and a little adventure." Elara smiled, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. "Deal." As they exchanged tentative but hopeful glances, the tension transformed into something more, an uncharted territory filled with promise. Elara realized that perhaps, just perhaps, stepping into the unknown could lead her to discover not just who she wanted to be, but who she could become with Theo by her side. Elara found herself counting the days until her next coffee with Theo. Each passing moment felt charged with expectation, her heart fluttering with the thrill of uncertainty. Their last conversation had left her feeling as if they had stepped through a door into something entirely new. She made her way to their usual cafe, the familiar aroma of roasted beans and baked goods welcoming her like an embrace. The sun cast a warm glow through the large windows, illuminating the scattered tables occupied by chatter and laughter. Her nerves tingled as she scanned the room for Theo, hoping for the familiar sight of his smile. When their eyes met, a spark ignited. He was seated at their usual corner table, one elbow resting casually on the surface, his blue eyes lighting up as he waved her over. "You're right on time," he said, a hint of mischief dancing in his expression. "Wouldn't want to keep you waiting," Elara replied, settling into her chair with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. She couldn't shake the feeling that each meeting meant something more, each moment layered with unspoken feelings. "So, how was your week?" Theo asked, leaning in, his gaze steady and attentive. "It was good. Busy, but I'm getting the hang of everything," she said, trying to sound casual while her heart raced. "How about you? Any new adventures in the world of business?" He chuckled softly, running a hand through his hair. Just the usual meetings and deals. I'm actually working on a project that could be a game changer for us. But it's stressful. The stakes are high. Elara leaned forward, intrigued. What's the project about? It's a tech startup that focuses on sustainable energy solutions. It's something I'm passionate about, but the pressure to deliver is immense, he explained, a hint of weariness shadowing his eyes. That sounds amazing, Theo. It's great to work on something you care about, she encouraged, eager to see the spark reignite in his eyes. It is. But sometimes it feels like I'm being pulled in two different directions, he admitted, the vulnerability in his tone cutting through the light-hearted atmosphere. Elara felt a knot form in her stomach. What do you mean? I love the business side of things, but I also want to make a real impact. Sometimes I wonder if I'm too entangled in the corporate world, he confessed, his gaze faltering for a moment, as if he were revealing a hidden truth. Maybe you can find a balance, she suggested gently. It's possible to be successful and still stay true to your passions. He smiled, but it faltered slightly. Easier said than done, right? The conversation shifted, and they shared light-hearted stories from their week, laughter bubbling up between them like a shared secret. But the earlier tension remained, simmering just beneath the surface, palpable and electric. How did you even get into marketing? Theo asked, tilting his head, curiosity etched in his features. Elara felt herself smile at the memory. I've always loved storytelling. I guess I see branding as a way to create narratives that resonate with people. It's like painting a picture with words and emotions. That's a beautiful way to put it, he said, admiration clear in his voice. You make it sound so artistic. I think everything can be art if you look closely enough, she replied, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Even business has its nuances of creativity. True, I like your perspective on that, he said, leaning closer, their chemistry bubbling just beneath the surface, a tension that felt both thrilling and daunting. As their coffees cooled, the conversation drifted back to personal matters, and Elara felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. She wanted to delve deeper but feared what might surface. What about your family? She ventured, unsure if she was overstepping. Theo's expression shifted slightly, a shadow passing over his features. My family expects a lot from me. Sometimes it feels like I'm upholding their legacy rather than creating my own. Elara's heart ached at his words. That sounds heavy. Do they know what you really want? No, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't think they'd understand. They see stability as success, while I crave something more meaningful. Have you ever considered telling them? She asked gently, sensing the weight of his internal struggle. There are moments when I want to, but fear holds me back, he confessed, his gaze drifting to the floor. I don't want to disappoint them. Elara, Theo said suddenly, lifting his gaze to meet hers, the intensity of his blue eyes sending a shiver down her spine. If I didn't have to worry about expectations, I'd want to travel the world, learn different cultures, and maybe even create films. Films? She echoed, surprised. That's incredible. Why not pursue that? It feels like a dream too far away, he sighed, his vulnerability hanging between them like a fragile thread. Maybe you could start small, she suggested, her heart racing at the thought of encouraging him. Create short films or travel vlogs. You could combine your business knowledge with your passion. A flicker of hope sparked in his eyes. You really believe I could? Of course, I do, she replied earnestly. You have so much potential, Theo. Don't let fear dictate your path. He leaned back, contemplating her words, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. You have a way of seeing the best in people. It's refreshing, he said softly, admiration lacing his voice. Their gazes locked, and the world around them faded momentarily. Elara felt the heat rise in her cheeks as the air thickened with unspoken words. It was as if they were teetering on the edge of something monumental, each heartbeat echoing the possibility of a deeper connection. Suddenly, the cafe door swung open, and a group of rowdy friends burst in, their laughter cutting through the intimate atmosphere. Elara felt the moment dissipate, and she instinctively recoiled, breaking the gaze they had been holding. "Ah, the joys of distractions," Theo said, chuckling lightly but with a hint of disappointment in his voice. "Yeah," she replied, feeling a wave of frustration wash over her. "It's hard to have those deeper conversations with interruptions." "The world has a knack for interrupting the best moments," he said, a wistful smile returning to his lips. They shared their final sips of coffee, the atmosphere shifting back to lightheartedness. But the earlier wait still lingered. As they stood to leave, Elara felt a mix of regret and longing. "Let's do this again soon," Theo suggested, his voice earnest. "I really value our talks." "Me too. I enjoy them more than I expected," she admitted, her cheeks flushing at the honesty. As they stepped outside, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm glow across the street. Elara felt a pang of disappointment, wishing their time together didn't have to end so soon. "Where to next?" Theo asked, a playful glint in his eyes. "I'm up for an adventure. Let's just walk for a bit. I like the idea of being aimless," she replied, feeling a thrill at the spontaneity. They strolled side by side, the energy between them crackling with every shared laugh, every sidelong glance that lingered just a second too long. Elara felt alive, her heart racing with the thrill of uncertainty. As they meandered through the park, they passed couples laughing and children playing, the vibrant life around them mirroring the pulse of energy that flowed between them. "Do you believe in fate?" Theo asked suddenly, breaking a comfortable silence. "That's a loaded question," Elara replied, raising an eyebrow. "Why do you ask?" "I don't know. It just feels like we crossed paths for a reason," he said, his expression earnest. "I agree, but sometimes I wonder if it's just a coincidence," she replied, her heart pounding. The idea of fate felt both enchanting and terrifying. "Why do you say that?" he asked, curiosity sparking in his eyes. "Because life is unpredictable, and I've been trying to take control of my own narrative," she confessed, feeling a wave of vulnerability wash over her. Theo nodded, his gaze thoughtful. "And what if you let go of some of that control? What if you allowed yourself to be swept away?" Elara's breath caught in her throat. "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe there's beauty in the chaos. Maybe it's worth exploring what's out there, even if it's scary," he said, stepping a little closer, their shoulders brushing against each other. The warmth of his presence sent a shiver down her spine, and she felt the weight of his words settle deep within her. "You're right," she whispered, her heart racing. "But it's so hard to let go." "Then let's do it together," he said, his voice steady and reassuring. "We can be each other's compass." In that moment, Elara felt a rush of emotion, fear, hope, and a yearning for connection that threatened to overwhelm her. "I'd like that," she said softly, her heart swelling with the promise of something new. As the sun began to set, they continued their stroll, the world around